My name is Hamza Yousuf. I was 17 years old when it happened. Born and raised in northern Syria, in a small village most people couldn't find on a map. Life wasn't easy. And war was always near, like a low drumbeat that never stopped. We were used to its sirens, bombings, checkpoints. I grew up Muslim, like everyone around me. My father taught me the prayers. My mother whispered Quran verses over us when the sky roared with planes. We prayed 5 times a day. I fasted in Ramadan. I did everything I was told, but I never really felt anything. My faith was habit, not heart. I recited the words, but they never reached deep. I had questions, but I never asked. Doubts, but I buried them. When people around me died, I told myself they were in Jannah, but I didn't actually know. And then one day, everything exploded. Literally. It was a Friday afternoon. I had gone to the market with my cousin Ahmed. We were laughing. It was one of the rare peaceful days. No gunfire, no drones, just sun and dust and life. We were picking up vegetables for my mother when the sky split open with a sound I'll never forget. I didn't even see the blast. 1 second, I was holding tomatoes. The next, I was gone. No pain, no fire, just gone. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I couldn't feel my body. I couldn't hear screaming anymore. There was no sound at all. Just this overwhelming stillness. I was floating, gore, maybe falling. I couldn't tell. There was no ground, no sky, just darkness. And then, like someone flipped a switch, a light appeared, not like the sun, not like electricity. This light was alive. It didn't blind me. It embraced me. It pulled me toward it like gravity made of love. I didn't resist. I couldn't. My soul wanted to go. I didn't know what it was. I only knew I was leaving everything behind. And then I saw him, a man standing in the center of the light. And before I could even think, the name rose in my heart, Jesus. And I didn't question it. I just knew. There was no mistaking it. The man standing in the light wasn't surrounded by angels. He didn't carry weapons. He wasn't dressed in gold. He looked simple, clothed in white, barefoot, eyes full of something I had never seen before, sorrow and love, both at once. I had never seen a face like that. He wasn't glowing like some holy statue. No, the light came from within him. It moved with him, breathed with him, and I knew without anyone telling me that it was Jesus. It didn't make sense. I had never studied Christianity. In my world, Jesus was a prophet, a good man, but not God, not Savior, not this. I had argued with friends about that once, angrily. But in this place, no one had to argue. There was no debate, no ego, no script, just truth, standing in front of me. I wanted to fall on my face, but I had no body. Still, my soul bent under the weight of who he was, not from fear but from something deeper, like my soul remembered him, like it had always known him and had been waiting for this moment. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at me, through me, and I felt everything. My thoughts, my sins, my confusion, my doubt laid bare. There was no hiding, and yet, he didn't turn away. He didn't reject me. He didn't demand to know why I didn't follow him in life. He already knew. Instead, he moved closer, and I felt something in me break open. I expected a voice like thunder, but when he spoke, it was gentle, gentle enough to undo everything I had ever built around my heart. Hamza, he said, and hearing my name in his voice made me weep. I've loved you from the beginning. That sentence hit me harder than the explosion. It undid me completely, because I realized I had spent my whole life following rules, checking boxes, trying to avoid hell, but I had never known love. Not like this. Not from God. And in that moment, I asked, without even speaking, why me? Jesus answered with just a look, and I knew. He wasn't here because I had earned it. He wasn't here because I was special. He was here because grace had found me. Grace I never asked for. Grace I didn't believe in. But grace that was real. The space around us began to shift, not like a dream changing, but like a curtain being pulled back. The light didn't fade, but it opened wider, and suddenly, scenes of my life began to play before us. Not like memories in my mind, but like reality unfolding in front of both of us. Jesus stood beside me, silent, and I watched it all. I saw myself as a child, small, quiet, curious. I saw moments I had forgotten completely. The first time I prayed beside my father, the first time I looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone was listening. The nights I cried alone after bombings, not because of fear, but because I felt invisible. I had whispered into the dark, "Are you really there?" And now, standing in the light, I realized he had heard every word. Then came the hard part. I saw my sins. Not crimes, not great scandals, but the everyday selfishness, the lies, the rage in my heart. I saw how often I had judged others for not being devout enough. I saw the quiet pride I carried because I thought I was better than others. I had been religious, but my heart had been far from God. And yet, Jesus didn't leave. He stood beside me through every scene. His presence didn't weaken when the sins appeared. If anything, he seemed to come closer, like he wanted me to know, "I'm not here to condemn you. I'm here to heal you." Then I saw moments I had ignored in life. Christians who had smiled at me when I was cold. Strangers who helped me when I didn't ask. A moment when I walked past a church and felt something in my chest that I shrugged off. I realized now they weren't random. They were seeds, quiet invitations, his whispers. He had been pursuing me the whole time. Tears streamed from a part of me I didn't know could cry, and I turned to him not with arguments, not with fear, but with a brokenness that said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." And Jesus smiled, not because I was finally getting it, but because I had opened. And in that smile, I felt something I'd never known from religion. I felt what it meant to be forgiven. After the life review faded into light again, Jesus turned to me. I expected him to say something profound, something heavy, but instead, he gently said, "Come." And I followed. There was no path, no floor, yet I was moving with him, as if my soul understood how to walk without feet. The light around us grew warmer, more alive. And then, suddenly, we stopped. Ahead of us was a radiance I can't describe. It was like a city, but not built of bricks. Like music, but without sound. Like joy, but multiplied beyond understanding. The air itself was full of love, like I was breathing in the presence of God. Jesus said nothing, but I knew what I was looking at. Heaven, not a fantasy, not a myth, a real place. And the most painful part of all, I couldn't go in. Not yet. I could see movement beings made of light, laughter so pure it healed wounds I didn't know I carried. I saw people, souls, each one wrapped in peace so powerful. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed. Not from jealousy, from longing, because in that moment, I realized this is what I had been made for. Not rules, not fear, not duty. This, to be with him, to live in that love, to never be alone again. I looked at Jesus. My heart was begging to stay. Every part of me wanted to run into that place and never look back. But then, he touched my shoulder. "Not yet, Hamza," he said. "There are people who need to hear what you've seen." I shook my head, panicked. They won't believe me, I thought. I'm just a boy, a Muslim boy. They'll call me mad. But he knew what I was thinking. He always did. They won't believe your words, he said, but they'll believe your change. I looked back at the gates. If you could even call them that one last time, and then I nodded, with tears in my eyes. I didn't want to leave, but if he was asking, how could I say no? Then he stepped back, and the light behind him began to fade. The last thing I heard before everything went dark was his voice, calm and strong. You are mine. And then I was falling. Not in fear, not in punishment, but falling back to life. The first thing I felt was pain. Blinding, raw, unbearable pain. My ears were ringing. My face burned. My chest ached like it had been crushed. I couldn't open my eyes. I could barely breathe. But through it all, one thing rose above the agony: his name. I screamed it over and over again. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. The doctors thought I was delirious. One shouted something in Arabic. Another tried to sedate me, but I wouldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I wasn't just alive. I had been sent back. Not as a boy who survived an explosion, but as a soul who had seen eternity and lived to tell of it. They wrapped me in bandages. I couldn't move for days. The nurses whispered about me in the hallway. One of them leaned over and asked in a soft voice, "Why are you saying that name?" I stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Because he saved me." When my mother came into the hospital room, her eyes filled with tears of relief. But when I told her what I saw, her face changed. She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "You were dreaming." But I knew she was just afraid. Everyone thought it was trauma, a hallucination. But I knew. With every fiber of my being, I knew. Because no dream makes you feel clean. No vision changes your soul. No fantasy leaves you weeping with joy in the middle of your suffering. The doctors said it was a miracle I was alive at all. Shrapnel had missed my heart by centimeters. A paramedic on the scene said I had no pulse for over 2 minutes. They were preparing to cover my body when I gasped for breath. I wasn't just revived. I was resurrected. But I didn't tell many people at first. I knew what it would cost. My family, my mosque, my village, they wouldn't accept it. But I also knew I couldn't bury the truth. Jesus didn't send me back so I could hide. He sent me back so I could speak. So, as soon as I could walk again, I asked for a Bible. I wanted to know him, not just the one I met in light, but the one who walked this earth. And when I read his words, I heard his voice again, the same voice that called me by name and brought me back. Word spread fast. At first, people whispered. Then they stopped whispering and started shouting. My father asked me what happened in that explosion, and when I told him everything, from the light to the man in white to the name I screamed when I woke up, he went silent, not confused, not sad, just hard. That night, he sat me down and said, "Whatever you saw was not real, and if it was a test. You must repent." I tried to explain. I told him about the love, about the cross, about the forgiveness. I even said, "Baba, I met him. I know it was Jesus." "Baba." He stood up and left the room without saying another word. My friends stopped coming to see me. My uncle refused to speak my name. My mother cried constantly, not for my pain, but for my soul, because to her, I had abandoned everything we believed. One cousin told me I was being possessed. Another asked if I had joined the enemy. I wanted to be angry, but I wasn't, because the more I was rejected, the more I remembered his face. The more they pushed me away, the closer I felt to him. Jesus had warned me, even in the light, they may not believe your words, but they'll believe your change. So, I started living differently. I began praying not out of fear, but out of love. I didn't just recite words anymore. I spoke to God like a son to a father. I opened the Bible secretly and read about his life, the miracles, the mercy, the sacrifice. Every time I read his words, it felt like he was sitting beside me again, speaking straight into my heart. I even read the story of Saul, how he persecuted Christians, how he met Jesus in a blinding light, and how his entire life was changed. It felt like I was reading my own story. I wasn't alone. And then one day, I whispered it to myself, unsure if I was even allowed to say it. I believe in you, Jesus, not just as a prophet, as Lord, as Savior. That was the moment. Everything inside me changed again. It wasn't just faith anymore. It was relationship. I didn't have a church. I didn't have support. I didn't even have acceptance. But I had him, and he was enough. I knew there would be a cost for sharing my story, but I also knew I hadn't been brought back from death just to stay silent. So I started to speak, not with microphones or platforms, but one person at a time, carefully, quietly, but with fire in my bones. I told my story to my friend Yousuf. We used to go to the mosque together. He sat in stunned silence for 20 minutes after I finished. Then he asked one question. What did he look like? I told him, like peace wrapped in glory, like someone who had seen every part of me and still loved me. He didn't say anything else. But the next day, he came back asking for a Bible. Then I told Layla, a girl from our school who had always wrestled with doubt. She listened with tears in her eyes and said, "You've just described the man who visits me in my dreams." I started sharing my story online, using a fake name, a different face, an anonymous voice. I talked about the explosion, the darkness, the light, the man I met. I didn't push doctrine. I didn't attack anyone's faith. I just told the truth, and the messages started pouring in. I'm Muslim, but I had a similar dream and never told anyone. My cousin saw Jesus before he died in the hospital. How can I know more about him? People didn't always believe me. Some were angry. Some threatened me. One even called me an infidel and said I should be punished. But I wasn't afraid, because I had already died, and I had come back with a mission. I realized something beautiful. Truth doesn't need to be shouted. When it's real, when it's alive in your soul, it radiates. The people who are ready will hear it. The ones who aren't, I still pray for them, and I pray with him now, not to a distant God who only listens when I'm perfect, but to the one who looked me in the eye when I was broken, dead, and confused, and loved me anyway. I'm no longer afraid to speak his name, because Jesus didn't come to me with a sword. He came to me with scars that healed my soul. I often ask myself, why me? Why would Jesus come to a 17-year-old Muslim boy from a forgotten war zone in the middle of blood and chaos and disbelief? Why would he appear to someone who never prayed to him, never believed in him, and who barely understood who he was? And the answer is always the same, because love goes where it's not invited, and grace finds those who never thought they needed it. I didn't deserve what I saw. I didn't earn the light. I had nothing to offer him, not worship, not loyalty, not even understanding. But still, he came. He came when I was most unworthy, when I was dead. And now, I live, not just in the body that was revived on that torn up street. I live in the spirit, in the soul that was awakened. Every breath I take now carries weight, purpose, eternity. I no longer live for myself. I no longer chase religion for security. I no longer fear death, because I met the one who holds it. His name is Jesus, and he is real. He is not just a prophet, not just a teacher, not a myth for another religion. He is the light that pierced my darkness, the voice that called my name, the king who wore scars for my freedom, the lamb who met me when I didn't even know how to look for him. Now I walk with him, even when I walk alone. Some still reject me. Some still say I betrayed my background, my culture, my faith. But the truth is, I didn't turn my back on anything. I finally saw the one I've been searching for all along, and he welcomed men out with punishment, but with peace. So now I speak. I tell my story, not because I'm brave, but because someone out there needs to hear it. Someone is lost, like I was. Someone is praying into the silence and wondering if anyone hears. Yes, he hears. And when you meet him, everything will change. My name is Hamza Yousuf. I died in an explosion. I met Jesus, and I will never be the same.